This video corresponds with homework 8. This is unit 5 dash, this is homework 8, and this is about inverses. So our next topic is going to be inverse of a function, and we're going to talk a little bit about inverse graphically today, and then we're going to talk about tomorrow how to do this algebraically as well. So the first thing we need to know about inverses has to do with the graph. So below here you see two equations. You see y equals 2x plus 2 on the left, and you see y equals 1/2 x minus 1 on the right. And then I'm going to actually show you 2x plus 2 over here in red. That's this first line. And then I'm going to show you the blue one is the 1/2. So the first thing that I want you to notice is that there's actually symmetry over a special line that you learned about in geometry. And that special line is the diagonal line that goes through the origin, and that's called y equals x. So the first thing that you need to know is that there's symmetry over the line y equals x. Okay, and this symmetry really means that the reflection of the y equals 2x plus 2 over that line is going to give you the inverse. Okay, so this is the original function, which I can call f of x, for example, and then this is the inverse of the function. And the name of the inverse we call is f with this little -1, and that -1 means inverse. So whenever you see that -1, that -1 does not mean exponent, it actually just means inverse of the function, okay? So basically what we did was we did a reflection, which is lowercase r, in the line y equals x, and then this red line got reflected over it and it became the blue line. So now what happens to a point over that line? Well, it turns out that any point coordinates x, y gets flipped or switched. So x, y becomes y, x. So you switch x and y. Switch or swap x and y. So let me show you an example. Let's say you have 0, 2 on the original. Okay, 0, 2. When you switch 0, 2, it's going to become 2, 0. Now let's do another one. 2, 6. When you switch 2, 6, it becomes 6, 2, etc. So basically, if you switch or swap x and y, you get the inverse of the point. So the inverse of a point is just switching x and y. The inverse of the line, the whole line, would mean you would have to switch every single coordinate pair. All right. So basically that 0, 2, which is over here, became 2, 0 over here. And it should be a mirror image over this line if it's equidistant. All right. So moving on. Now we can also do it algebraically. So I told you just now we switch x and y, okay? So the points, remember, switch x and y. Switch x and y, okay? So similarly, we're going to switch x and y to find the inverse algebraically. So the first thing to know is it says f -1, so remember that means find the inverse of the function, right? So that's f -1 of x. That's the notation, okay? So step 1, we're going to rewrite, if we want to switch x and y, we got to first rewrite f of x as y, because f of x is the same thing as y. So step 1 is rewrite f of x as y. All right, that's important, because now what we're going to do is we're going to switch the x and the y. All right, so that's step 2, switch x and y. Now, when we switch x and y, we're really going to just rewrite this entire thing completely the same, except the x and the y are going to change spots. So x and y basically are going to switcheroo. So this is going to become x equals 3y minus 2. Notice I'm copying down the exact same equation. I just switch x and y. I don't switch the 3 at all. I don't move the 2. I just switch x and y. Now the last step that we have to do is solve for y, because we want to get it in y equals form. Okay, so basically you just want to move this equation, this new equation around to get y by itself. So y is over here. So you're going to add 2. And you get x plus 2 equals 3y, and then divide by 3. Okay, so our final answer is y equals x plus 2 over 3. This is called the inverse, so I'm going to label it as f -1 of x, which means inverse. Now, I just also want to remind you that we could have left this as the answer x plus 2 over 3. Another thing we could have done is broken this both up into dividing by 3. So we could have done x over 3 and 2 over 3. So that would have also been an acceptable answer for the inverse. Or we could have written this as a 1 in front, 1/3 x plus 2/3, and that is also acceptable. So there's actually three answers here. One is the x plus 2 over 3, one is this one x over 3 plus 2 over 3, and one is this. This one is actually in y equals mx plus b form, which is 1/3 x plus 2/3. Now I want you to pause this video for a second and see if you can try this one. So remember, step 1 is going to be rewrite it as y equals. Step 2, switch x and y. And step 3 is solve for y. So take a minute and try it. Okay, so you should have written y equals negative 2x plus 8. Now you're going to switch x and y. So you're going to write x equals negative 2y plus 8. So there's your switcheroo. Notice you're just switching x and y. Now we're going to solve for y. So here's y. I'm going to subtract 8. So I get x minus 8 equals negative 2y. Divide by negative 2. And thus my answer is x minus 8 over negative 2. And again, you could call this f inverse, which is f negative 1 of x. All right, so that's the answer. Another way would have been to write it as x over negative 2 minus 8 over negative 2. And that would have actually become negative 1/2 x plus 4. If you want to be fancy, that's another answer. Okay, so there's multiple ways to write this, but it's totally acceptable to write it as this. X minus 8 over negative 2. But if this were a multiple choice, if that choice wasn't there, you would want to kind of manipulate your answer to see if you could find the other one. And then the last one, number 3. Okay, notice we just have a set of ordered pairs. So remember the set of ordered pairs is x comma y, x comma y, x comma y. So remember you just want to switch or swap x and y. So xy becomes yx. Okay, so I'm going to list them maybe like this. 4, 2 becomes 2, 4. 5, 0 becomes 0, 5. And last one, 6, negative 8 becomes negative 8, 6. Okay, so the answer, which is called G inverse, I should say G negative 1 of x, by the way. There's a little typo there. That's the inverse, is going to be the set of ordered pairs, 2, 4, 0, 5, and negative 8, 6. Okay, and the squiggly fancy bracket is a solution set. So notice every point just got swapped or switched. That's it. Now you try the rest.